let's talk about Bel-Air, the much
Sure.
anticipated reboot to the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Obviously, we've done a preview to this, so if you want, check that out and see what we thought prior to the show coming out. But let's get into these episodes. The opening scene, as a kid from Philly, it's only right that young Bull is actually out here listening to What We Do as he wakes up. They obviously set the scene, and it's like unapologetically Philly. I mean, you got dreams and nightmares in the locker room. You got,
of course,
you got Freeway as the basketball coach. You got the ATVs and the bikes out.
You know what's crazy? Tia caught that before I did.
Really?
She was like, "Isn't the basketball coach? Didn't he make this song?" I was like, "I don't know." I was like, "Who was the basketball coach?" I didn't even. He wasn't there long enough for me to see. Like,
he was literally there for a second. So if you blink, you missed it.
Hot second, yeah.
So they got Dreams and Nightmares, Freeway. They got ATVs and bikes. John's
Bulls. Everywhere. Everything's a John.
Will is even balling like James Harden. So they already got the Harden thing out there. He's traveling all over the fucking place. Any thoughts on how they will continue to set the scene in West Philly? Like, did you like how they set the scene already? Do you think what did you think about all that?
Well, so one of the things that we really lacked out of the original, the comedy sitcom was that, we may have gotten 1-2 episodes of Will in Philly in his environment. So it did give us a little bit more of an in-depth look at how he was in his home, his place. It was interesting to see parts of it that weren't necessarily staples of Will's character, like the fact that he was a straight A student.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like that was something I like that they put to the forefront. That he's as intelligent as he is, charming and witty, stuff like that. A lot of times people highlight television shows. Take a show like Power, for instance, going to Chicago. There was a lot of scenery in last week's episode of Force, but how many of them neighborhoods are the neighborhoods where the people that's watching that show actually live? That's what I liked about what they did with the shots that were in West Philly, because they took you to West Philly, right? Yeah. They took you to the basketball court. They took you to the high school. They took you up and down his block. You know what I mean? They didn't take you to the goddamn steps where Rocky, shot Rocky 1. They didn't take you to the Broken Bell or whatever, the Liberty Bell. They didn't show you monuments of Philadelphia. They showed you West Philly.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. I do like how they are trying to paint the whole thing to be very authentic. Even got the Philly cheesesteaks all up in the jaw. You know what I mean? As I said in the preview, Rashad, aka Easy the Block Captain, is an actual battle rapper from Philly, which kind of gives a little bit more authenticity to his character, to the whole scene that we're trying to set here. Any thoughts on his character at all?
Early on, obviously, he's the big bad of the series. Originally, as I'm seeing him like in the previews and stuff like that, the running away from the plug or running away from the big bag drug dealer in the neighborhood, it's a little rewatched. It's a little overdone, but I wanted to see how they do it. I don't think it's going to be that exactly, just plainly that, like straight up linear. Oh, I have to chase this kid, across the country for no reason, because he put a gun to my face. I have to chase this fucking 15-year-old to the ends of the earth to make sure that my manhood is solidified. Like, I don't think that's what it is. I don't think that's what it is, because most of what we've seen in the show hasn't been that plain, hasn't been that simple. Nothing is really black and white so far, which I like. So, as far as his, I think a lot to come from his character.
Okay. Will's bet with him kind of seemed a little stupid. Like, basically, if he wins, he gets 2 bands. He loses, he has to work for him.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a fair trade. It doesn't seem like a fair trade. But he knew.
Luckily, he wins.
He knew that bro couldn't beat him. He knew that. He knew it.
Yeah.
He knew it the minute that he walked on the court. He knew it before he ever pulled up. I wanted to point out the fact that homeboy, his boy Trey, right? Trey bought the John. He brought the trap with him to the park because he said he needed protection. Will's like, you keep that shit tucked. We ain't gonna need it. We gonna be good. So let's just keep that in mind, how we came into this. Don't you pull that shit out, nigga, because we ain't gonna need it. That's what you said to him.
Obviously, a huge brawl ensues after Will wins the bet. He's the one that pulls out the John. And, you know, he did it to protect his homie, at the very least. But then that's when Easy the Block Captain says, if you're going to pull it out, you better use it, or I'm going to come see you later on.
You know what? I ain't mad at Easy the Block Captain. I'm not mad at Rashad because he's right. If you pulled that bitch, you better use it.
No pump faking.
Here's the thing. Here's my problem with it, right? His bro is getting jumped. Are you above catching the ass beating with your mans? You above getting jaded with your boy? Like, who hasn't been jumped with their friend at some point in time? You know what I'm saying? Like, you catch an L. You just get smoked. You catch an L. I don't know. Every situation is different. And I guess you can make the argument that you don't know exactly how far they was going to go. I would like to think that you would jump in first, especially thinking that you coming from the mindset, well, we just not going to need the guns.
So obviously after the whole big brawl, obviously the police get involved and they get arrested. And luckily Uncle Phil is there to, or I should say 2022 Phil. I'm not going to call him Uncle Phil just yet. 2022 Phil pulls some strings and gets Will out of jail. And so now Will is on his way out to LA.
That shit happened fast as hell, boy.
Oh, he's super fast.
Running for district attorney, not is the district attorney. Like that shit was fast as hell.
So Will is on his way to LA, gets on the flight, heads out there, and Jazz is the one to pick him up in an Uber. I actually really like this version of Jazz. At some point, Will tells him to pull over, and they basically look over LA. And Jazz gives him advice, basically saying, look, don't forget where you came from. This city will eat you up, which would be great advice if Jazz had known exactly where Will was heading with this big ass mansion in LA.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, actually, that probably makes it good advice. That's probably the best advice he could give him going into that situation, because God damn, they did something to the Bel-Air estate.
Yeah, big time. Huge upgrades.
Heat. I like it because there was always parts of the house that like you just never saw. Like you
because it was
a
set.
You always saw the outside of the front door, but never what the entryway actually looked like. You could always see the beginnings of the pool area from the backyard, but you never saw the pool. You always saw the inside of the pool house, but you never saw that whole courtyard situation they got in the back. So, you know, you could almost forget that they live somewhere out in the hills if you're watching the sitcom. So I thought that was dope. Like you got to see like every inch of the house.
He gets greeted by Jeffrey, which Jeffrey is way cooler than Will. Let's just this 2022 Jeffrey is way cooler than Will.
I don't know if he's cooler than Will, but he's definitely cooler than old Jeffrey. Definitely cooler
he's
than old Jeffrey.
He's a million times cooler than old Jeffrey.
And I love old Jeffrey, but this dude, nah,
I don't know, bro. There. I think he kind of cooler than Will. Will at some points the new Will can be kind of a little goofy, but I think that's an homage to what the original Will
can be
was.
a little. I was about to say a little goofy. Did you remember Will Smith? Don't you?
I do.
You remember big ears, big old head Will Smith, right?
I think the new Will is doing a good job at getting some of those mannerisms from old Will.
Oh, for sure. He is doing a good job. The constant joking, the witty comebacks. You know what I mean? Like he never shakes anybody's hand. He always creates a handshake or something for that. Like that type of stuff. Those are the type of aesthetics that made the show great. So I do think he really delved into the character a lot. Side note though, if you're comparing how cool a grown ass man is to how, you know, cool the fucking 15-year-old is, he probably already lost.
I mean, I guess, but Jeffrey was never cooler than Will. So to see this kind of flip in on his head.
Well, let's look at it then, because they have done, you know, I think slight changes with all the characters.
That actually brings me to my next point.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hillary in 2022 is like this Instagram influencer with 75,000 followers. She's doing an IG live basically as he walks in, which seems perfect for Hillary, I would think. Like a new 2022 version of Hillary would probably be a social media influencer.
Absolutely. She's also not as ditzy as she
which
was.
I actually really like.
She's not the ditzy blonde black girl. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, she is very self-aggrandizing. She's obviously, she knows what she looks like, tall glass of water. She's dope in the sense that like she's unapologetic about how she feels about herself. Right? I think that came off as arrogant or very snobby in the sitcom. This is just kind of like confidence. You know, it's not belittling. It's not like, oh, poor people stuff. Oh my God. You know what I'm saying? It's not like that. It's just very, I don't know. I like it. I like it better than the sitcom portrayal, honestly.
I do too. But I think that the Hillary for the sitcom worked for the sitcom, but I think this Hillary works perfectly for this show. We also see little Ashley, who seems to be up on the latest global current events, which is nuts, but pretty apt for a 12-year-old, honestly, in this day and age.
Smart Ashley. We didn't get too much on her character. I expect in the coming weeks that we'll get a lot more development into Ashley. But I don't know. She may turn out being Yaz, you know, in season 1 and never be seen, because I mean, in the first 3 episodes they haven't done a whole lot with her. But I'll be looking for, you know.
We also see a retconned Lisa, who actually is already in the show.
Hey man, listen, I'm gonna just say this. I don't think that's the only thing that I predicted. But
okay.
Yeah. But
shit,
yes, they did retcon Lisa. And not only is she in the family's life before Will gets there, but she's Carlton's ex, which
is a weird dynamic.
Right. Initially, I kind of fought it. I was like, no, until I kind of saw who they were trying to make Lisa in this TV show. Lisa is a mashup between Lisa and Tyra Banks's character. Was it Jesse, the athlete from ULA?
I can't remember what her name is, but I remember what you're talking about.
It's like the hooper from Tyra Banks's character. They mashed them together, right? So she's a prolific swimmer. She even got a little Nia Long look in the face, a little bit, kind of, sort of. You know what I mean? Like, so they kind of put 2 different characteristics of women that Will dated, you know, or dealt with in the. I was wondering if he was going to end up having, like, if he was just going to build up to Lisa, like if she was going to be a background character, and then he ends up, but it looked like he diving head in. Another reason why I was a little bit reserved about her showing up so early is because whose high school relationships work out, right? And Will's supposed to end up with Lisa. So, you know, maybe they split apart for a little while, they go about their separate ways, and then they make it back together by the time the series ramps up. Well, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Because I know this shit ain't gonna end well. Whatever comes out of it, it's not gonna end well because it's high school. We ain't talking about Carlton.
Right.
Yeah.
So at this point, he's obviously, like you said in the preview, he's kind of like this suave, uncharacteristically suave character, almost the opposite of what we know him as in the original sitcom. But he's still a prep at the most part.
Yeah, but I think it's still Carlton in the sense that he's very arrogant. He's still very proud of his status and his wealth. And, you know, he's very proud of being the chosen Black in his community, right? I think at some point in these first 3 episodes, he even looked out upon the whites and called them his people. That made me cringe very hard. Hey, you don't want to fuck with me here. These are my people. Like, oh. But it's like, where maybe in the 80s or 90s, everybody looks at that guy and is like, yeah, fuck you. Your invitation to the cookout is permanently removed. It's a little bit more acceptable nowadays, right? It's actually, you know, a little bit more common than probably what we would like to see it. So let's say in 2022, you're a lot more comfortable to have that attitude than you were in 1993.
So we got all the kids taken care of. What do you think about the parents?
Okay, so starting with Uncle Phil.
2022 Phil. He's not Uncle Phil yet.
He's Uncle Phil. That's
he's not Uncle Phil yet.
My boy, Yamacraw. My boy, Yamacraw. Big brother Omicron. Yamacraw. So I like him. I like that instead of a judge, he's a district attorney, or at least running for district attorney, but he's an attorney that has gone after power structures or has held power in check or held them accountable. I like that angle as opposed to the judge angle, because it's a lot easier for me to hear a dissenting opinion on Will's upbringing or his background or, his experiences with police, the situation that led him to come here. Although he is very judgmental over it, I'm very confused as to why no one but Carlton has asked this man what actually happened to make him shoot that gun. But it's not coming from this ultra conservative authoritarian perspective. I think he understands a young Black male's experience in the hood. I think he understands the statistical and the systemic hurdles that he was probably faced with coming up. He's probably one of those guys that views incremental change as progress. So I think he's just slightly more progressive than what older Uncle Phil was, coming from the background that he came from.
It would seem that he understands, obviously, the things that plague the community, although maybe a little bit removed from it. He's seeing a little success. Yeah, I would agree with that. Aunt Viv is actually maybe potentially even cooler than the original Aunt Viv, in the sense that she still has Philly ties in her throughout the 3 episodes that we see here. I thought that was kind of cool, at least. What you have any thoughts on Aunt Viv?
Aunt Viv, so number one, yes, she does still seem to have some of her Philly roots. They did a good job in the first couple of episodes fleshing that out. The thing that I think that I can see has been highlighted very early is the fact that Viv was sort of this golden child. She was some sort of prodigy in not in dance like the original Aunt Viv, but in art, portraits, paintings, things like that. So that's something to think about, because much like Hillary has with her cooking, that was the same type of talent and drive that Vivian had towards her art. For some reason, that had to go away.
Yeah, because she had kids, bro.
Yeah, she had kids, all right.
So it seems a little weird to me that with all the resources that the Banks have in this situation, that it was never at least explored for Will to go out there for his basketball prowess and his grades at some point before all of this happened. Nobody thought, hey, let's send Will out to LA to maybe play basketball for a prep school and get maybe even better recruited out there.
I mean, I would say the way basketball is played now with AAU leagues and stuff like that, it's not really necessary to be in LA to play basketball. So True. I think it's odd that it did happen at the time that it happened for everyone else. So for people looking at the situation, looking at a junior, transferring halfway across the country in one of the most pivotal years in his recruitment, that probably looks very odd. It'd be one thing if he did it at the onset of his high school career as a freshman. It's another thing to do it damn near at the end, So that is most definitely probably, it should be more alarming to more people. I think the coach mentions it at some point, but
I think maybe at some point they probably should have thought about that maybe in his freshman and sophomore year, at least to get him out the hood, maybe even then at that point.
Yeah.
Make Will Zeke from Power.
Well, for his mom to drop everything, at a drop of a dime, I'm getting you out the pokey, and I'm taking you straight to the airport. Like, nigga, you're not even stopping to pick up the toothbrush. Hope you got your favorite drawers on. You know what I'm saying? I'll ship you the rest. So for her to be that serious about it, yeah, I wonder if maybe it did come up earlier than what we're seeing. Maybe they did try to get Will out there, sooner than what it actually happened.
Will telling his homie, what's his name, Trey?
Yeah.
Will telling his homie to lay low, despite clearly not being safe in this situation, was kind of nuts. And then what the hell did Will think he was going to do once he got back to Philly to keep bro safe?
Okay, so what else was he supposed to tell him other than keep your head down and stay safe? Like, what else am I supposed to tell you?
That's fair. But I guess the biggest concern is what was he going to do?
Now, what was he going to do? I have no idea. Like, you have no money, fam. Were you going to sneak onto a plane? Like, I don't know what he was going to do as soon as he got to LAX. And then by some miracle, if you got back to Philly, was you gonna say pretty please? Was you gonna what were you gonna do?
Then we see Will show up to the school to kind of visit, and then we see a scene where Connor and Carlton are singing Bobby Shmurda, and Connor lets a few N-words fly.
More than a few.
Yeah.
More than a few. I'm like Carlton, fam. Carlton, man.
Maybe I'm removed from Black elites, but the fact that Carlton didn't even realize what was wrong with that, at the least, was a little weird to me. You don't even understand what's wrong with that.
Told Will that he was playing the race car. What the fuck? What the fuck is he talking about? Hey, Phil, this nigga, man.
That shit was nuts.
What the hell happened to Carlton? Because his daddy don't act like that. Like, his daddy is rich and he's clearly a wealthy man who, is slightly jaded by his privilege, because he does dismiss Will's thoughts a lot, and he does dismiss, his character a little bit to a certain degree, even before he really gets to know him. But Carlton is a different animal, boy. Carlton is a different animal. He is bred in the idea that his wealth rises him above the status of his race. Right? He is firmly in the belief that those are his people, and that anything that goes on dealing with racial issues is outside of his purview. He ain't got nothing to do with that. That ain't him. You know what I'm saying? It ain't got nothing to do with him. What Lil Wayne say? My life matters. So I guess Black Lives Matter. Speaking
of Carlton wilding out, bro is doing lines of Xanax in this show. Like, what? Carlton's doing drugs out here, dog? What? Like, the show just went off the rails at that point for me. I was like, what's going on here? This is completely different from the source material, fam.
Yeah. No, they turning it up. They are definitely turning it up. I think what they were trying to show, if you can remember early on, right, when Will started getting his footing in LA, Carlton went through this stage because Carlton played basketball. He didn't play no damn lacrosse. He played basketball at Bel-Air Academy. He went through this little stage where he felt like everywhere he turned, Will was upstaging him. Yep. Right. And he kind of iced him out of his circles with his friends, his family, and he felt like he was being replaced. I think they're showing that in more of an intricate way, like showing what somebody who has deeply rooted like anxiety issues or wanting of approval, you know what I'm saying? Somebody who desperately seeks the approval of others, what that does to a person who already has all of that on them. And then add on top of this, you're introducing this person that I don't know who's sucking up all the oxygen in the room. You know what I mean? So I think they're doing a better job of showing you the real life implications of just dropping a kid with a personality like Will off into a situation with a kid like Carlton, who kind of needs that attention to function.
Will and Carlton end up at this party. Will sees Lisa as a familiar face, and so he figures he goes up to her and becomes friendly with her.
He ran all the way around the pool to push Will into the pool. Will can't fucking swim. Lisa has to save Will, right. Pulls him out of the water, coughs up the water, gets upright, knocks Connor to clean the fuck out, and then goes to work on Carlton. Here's my thing. Why is Will in trouble at all? Why is Will in trouble at all? Look, the fact that Carlton walked back into the house, I should get a thank you. I should get a thank you. Your boy literally tried to kill me. If the Olympic trial, contestant over here wasn't there to fish me out of the pool, might have been dead. I might have been dead. D-E-Ed. How about after you've seen them talking at the dinner party, y'all sit down and have a man-to-man?
Something. Yeah, talk about it.
You live in the same house. That's your cousin. You seen them talking. It doesn't take you long to put two. Well, obviously, it took Carlton a little longer to put two and two together, but it doesn't take you long. Like, all right, so look, just so that we on the same foot, that's my ex. You know what I mean? I just want us to be on the up and up about this. I just, none of that. I feel like he owns all the responsibility for the fight, all of it. He owns half the responsibility for Will and Lisa because you ain't stand up and say nothing.
Yeah.
You didn't even hit Will to what was going on even after he met her. Yeah, like, man.
There was no precedent at all. And then he didn't set any boundaries at all. So
at all.
Whatever happens at that point. So that leads us into episode 2. Obviously, this whole Will versus Carlton situation is a little much for 22 Phil and Aunt Viv. So they ponder giving Will some different options, but that is when Will got a call that his homeboy had been shot.
Pause real quick. Let's go back to the conversation with Viv and Phil. Phil does not really want Will there. I don't think he has anything against him. I don't think he wants to hurt Will or put him in danger, but I also feel like he's holding his family's future and the future of his campaign over anything that Will has going on right now, at least right now at this point in the series. That's more important to him than Will's problems. Vivian says something interesting in that conversation that they owe it to him. Now, I understand family. And I understand stepping up for family in a time of need. That doesn't mean that things are owed. So I wonder what exactly it is that is owed to Will. Why is something owed? We're going to pause. Also, Phil has a little throwaway line in that conversation, saying that his heart has longed for that boy ever since his father. So number one, I know something really bad happened with Will's father. Number two, I know something probably happened in relation with that, dealing with Vivian, because she feels as though she owes Will for something. Now, I don't know exactly what it is, but I know we did make some predictions about this series prior to it premiering. So I just want to go ahead and say right now that if what I said is going to come true, actually comes true, that I'm a dog. Just crown me, just put it on my head. You know what I'm saying? John Campia, motherfucking E-Man, B. Avery, Lamont Tyson, Mark Dark, eat your heart out. You feel me? Your boy got the prediction brain over here. You feel like if it happens, I called it. I called it first. I got it's on wax. I got the proof. So if it happens, I think it is going to happen, just know that you heard it here back at the bus first.
I really hope Aunt Viv is not Auntie Monet out here. I just hope that's not the case. But
I think it's going to be much more cohesive. Number one, it's going to make sense as to why it happened. Let's leave that for another, because there's still more nuggets to that.
Uncle Phil goes on to the Big Boy show so that he can, relate to the common folk. And obviously, a lot of people call in and kind of wonder more about his money situation more so than his political situation, which I don't know if I like, because I feel like it set the precedent that, the common folk don't really care about the politics, the political side of things. They care more so about, hey, man, how much money you making?
Yeah, I thought that was a bit of a jaded take. And you've seen that a couple of times in the first couple of episodes where it's like they're trying to paint dual perspectives here. They're trying to show you, the perspective of the Black elite while also trying to give you the perspective of the Black common man. The Black common man doesn't really give a damn about how much money you make outside of what it is you're going to do with that money to materially improve our lives. So it's not a question of how much money do you make. I don't think 10 people will be calling in the big boy in a row asking you how much money you make. I think that was a little lazy.
One person called and said Black Lives Matter. The rest of the questions were about
his money. Nothing about policy, nothing about policy. It was just all, how much money you make,
Especially in this climate, I don't believe it.
I mean, even to that end, there's more educated ways to ask that question. Like, do you believe it? And you want to, revise the tax law? Do you want to, what do you think about wealth inequality in our area? That kind of thing. Not straight up, how much money do you make? It's very reductive. That's another thing that they have fleshed out in the drama series as opposed to the comedy sitcom, right? Is that the idea of what Will went through in the comedy series was just that. It was comedy. It was some big dude putting him on his shoulders in the fireman carry and spinning him around in circles, right? It wasn't a real life situation where he had to fire a weapon to save his boy or got roughed up by the police trying to flee or some shit like that. You know what I mean? It wasn't like a real life situation, or at least they didn't give you the real aspects of what would have went down had all of that, that situation transpired. So he's actually going through a little bit of PTSD from the situation, not just, walking through or dealing with authority figures, but also with the basketball, which he's going to have to overcome for that tryout. Yep. Yeah.
So he ends up playing one-on-one with Jazz, and he starts to experience some of that PTSD again.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's actually funny that during the tryout, instead of experiencing the PTSD, he channels in some of his inner Philly, it seems like, and actually comes out triumphant in the actual tryout, which I thought was interesting to see that instead of the clips of the PTSD, you started to see, him just kind of embracing the other side of it. So it kind of gives you like this little bit of contrast between the two.
And also, cool. Him being able to talk through some of that stuff with Jazz is really important, because I think sometimes as Black men, we hold things in, and you learn to do that as an early age. It was very interesting to see him interact with Jazz, right, at that young of an age, and him doing some of the things that I would probably do if somebody asked me if I was okay, or if I was dealing with stress and I was trying to bear it myself, because that's what they teach you, right? That you deal with your problems and you hold everybody else's weight too. Yeah. So I love that they didn't just let it slide, and he didn't, spaz out on Jazz or, do something that he was going to have to reconcile for later because he was upset about the tryout. They sat down, they talked through it, and he was able to exercise some of those demons so that when he got to the tryout, he was able to use that and come through it.
After the whole radio show, I thought it was interesting that they both have a conversation about, the system, because it was something that both of them could pull away from it. Like both of them had something to kind of learn from that conversation, being that both of them kind of had to deal with the literal system that's being put in place. And I thought that was interesting because in this, we kind of see, just like the original sitcom, we see Uncle Phil and Will have this moment where obviously they're very close, because in the sitcom, you saw moments where they pulled apart a lot, and you saw moments where they obviously came together, and it made for some of the best moments. So I just kind of thought that was pretty interesting.
It's piecing together the father figure for Will that he's always been missing. All right. And you're just getting a more in-depth look at that. I think that scene, that shows why it was so important to change Uncle Phil's role. Because if they would have had that conversation from the perspective of a judge, a federal judge, as opposed to an attorney, that conversation is going well different. It probably sounds a lot more like, hey, stop using your race as an excuse, and you know what I mean, and overcome your circumstances, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, that type of prop, right? And I don't think that lands very well today. You know, Uncle Phil doesn't come out of that conversation looking like he has a valid viewpoint. It seems like he has a very jaded one, and one that's clouded by privilege. So I think that with the compound sized mansion that they're living in, the only thing that gives Uncle Phil the bit of humility that he has is the fact that he fights for people who don't necessarily have the voice or resources to fight for themselves. And so on that level, he can understand being underrepresented, or what your circumstances being limited or taken away from you straight up can form your life. You know, that's something, that's a perspective that somebody who deals at that level of the law can see a lot more than somebody who's judging.
Last scene we see is that same security officer coming to bug Will again. This time he wants to see Will's book bag. In that book bag, he ends up finding a little bit of drugs.
Yeah, man. That is some real slime ball shit. That's some real slime ball shit. And it's just unfortunate because now his reputation is tarnished, right? Like, it doesn't really matter whether or not it turns out that, you know, he didn't do anything. Everybody's seen you get the perp walk to the principal's office with drugs. So.
And that leads us to episode 3, Yamacraw.
Yamacraw!
So Carlton knows that Connor did it, but obviously doesn't want to be implicated, which is
because he's sweet. He's sweet
trash.
For that. Nigga, that's
so
your
trash.
Family, dude.
You know?
So now that you actually know what a dick your boy Connor is, you still gonna protect him? Come on, man. Hey, man.
That shit is
look,
weak.
That being token, I guess, is very, very lucrative for Carlton.
Well, I guess when he needs to, you know, keep supporting his habits. Anyway,
I was wondering that too. I was like, where the fuck is he getting all this goddamn Xanax? Because like, some people don't just keep prescription drugs laying around like that. Like, it ain't. You're not just about to walk into the cabinet and get the oxy. That don't happen in our household. So I'm trying to figure out, where is he getting all of this Xanax? Probably Connor.
Connor. Definitely Connor. And so then we see 2022 Uncle Phil and Aunt Viv going to the school, and they kind of want to ask some questions about the whole situation.
Oh my God.
About the investigation.
Mr. and Mrs. Banks, we've conducted a thorough investigation. Okay, so what did you get when you reviewed the tapes? What did you see? It doesn't appear that we reviewed anything. Oh, well, what the fuck?
Literally, as they said, you didn't review the tapes?
You didn't review the tapes?
Like, how can you be so dumb? Like, a person who's not even an administrator would think the first thing to do would be to check the tapes when there's a million cameras on campus.
At this point, either you stupid or you think I'm stupid. Either way, I'm pissed.
Will stumbling on the inside out jacket, I didn't like that. You mean to tell me that he stumbles on the jacket because of a mustard stain, as opposed to the original show had it as like a fashion statement? It was like celebrating his individuality. Especially at a time where
that's what he was still doing. I think he was still celebrating his individuality by turning it inside out. My problem is, why the fuck is the inside of your school prep jacket so fucking fresh? Why does it look like like a designer reversible jacket? And how is he the first person to ever see that? Okay,
why was he the first person to see that? But the original jacket did the same thing. So I mean, I guess it's not the most foreign concept.
No. It's fugazi for it to be happening like that on either level. How the hell is it so fucking fresh? And how are you the first one to look at the inside of that and be like, "Hey, yo, this shit fire"?
You mean to tell me that nobody at this school has any kind of real like fashion sense, or would probably go on to become some sort of fashion designer? It seems like it's not a thing, especially in Bel-Air. Hillary and Viv look like fucking sisters at some points in this show. Like the age difference doesn't really show very well in some of these scenes. It looks like they're fucking sisters.
No, yeah, Aunt Viv is looking very, very well for a middle-aged woman, and whew, Hillary, my God. But yeah, it is. It's kind of shocking at a certain point, but black don't crack. So that
That's a fact. That's a fact.
Yeah, what is?
So speaking of Hillary, it looks like she's taking control of her what's happening with her in college, as opposed to trying to hide it, which I think is cool because, I mean, college isn't for everybody, and it doesn't have to be. As a person who actually, went and graduated college, like I feel like at any point I could have dropped out of college because it's not what it used to be, and it seems like the older generation are kind of attached to, you got to go to college so you can get a good job, and the world don't work that way no more.
Yeah, it's hard, I think, with Vivian in particular. Maybe not so much with Philip, but with Vivian because of where she comes from, right? Like, she didn't always have this life that she has, right? Her and Philip worked hard for it to get it. So she's looking at Hillary like, all right, well, I gave you this time, and you're not building towards it. At least in her mind, you're not progressing in the way that I think you should be. And so, yeah, if she's living under your roof for free, that can make you feel some type of way if you don't feel like she's making the progress she should. At the same time, I can't imagine you going through the things that you went through to get to where you are could look at a 20-year-old, somebody who's been out of high school for 2 years, and expect them to have a sustainable salary. With no discernible skills, no degree, you expect them to be providing for themselves at that point in time. You knew how ridiculous that was for somebody to expect that of you at that age, but here you are, 20 years her senior, doing the same thing that you detested people for doing to you when you were struggling. So it's an interesting dynamic, but I can understand it from Vivia's perspective, because she understands that nothing comes easy. There's no telling how they had to scratch and what she had to sacrifice to get where she is today.
Do you feel good about that?
I do. I do. Especially since she had to sacrifice so much for Hillary to be where she at, and then she just wasting it away. Do you know what I had to give up, girl?
I hate it here. Anyway, so as a frat bruh, how did you feel about, I mean, it's not your frat, obviously, but how did you feel about the crawfish boil and how they
Depicted
took a look
that?
at
So
fraternities?
Here's why I'll tell you why I respect it. Even though they did their best to make all of them alphas look corny as hell. but here's why I appreciated it. Yamakra went to the A Phi A cookout, right? Alpha Phi Alpha. There were some obvious members of Alpha Phi Alpha, and they was in their stepping, they were strolling, they had P on. There were members of A Phi A in that shot wearing P. Non-members, which I'm assuming Yamakra was probably one of them, was not wearing P. Right? The mother, her sorority sisters came over. She named some random sorority, which I think was supposed to be likened to AKA, but it wasn't AKA. You know why? Because there were no AKAs in the room. It is not that much to ask that if you believe it's that important to have some of your characters in your movie to be Greek and to wear Greek letters and wear Greek paraphernalia, that you cast Greek actors. It's not that hard. If it's that important to the story that character be Greek, there are plenty of Black Greek actors in Hollywood. Pick one. It's not necessary for you to have non-Greek actors out here wearing P and getting them killed because of it, because they were just playing a role. I blame that on casting directors. I blame that on producers. I blame that on writers. If you're going to write that stuff into your story, that's literal Black history that you're referencing. So it's not something to be played with or trifled with. If you're going to do that and it's that important to the story, cast Greek actors.
Fair enough.
It's simple enough, man. It's not that huge of an ask. Just don't have people who don't aren't part of that organization running around in the letters.
So then later on, we see Will has a basketball game and Carlton has a lacrosse game. The family goes to show support to Will initially, which at a weird time, Aunt Viv decides to have the conversation with Hillary about moving out of the pool house. I thought that was really weird. Like, she couldn't have her own scene where she actually had that conversation at the basketball game. Seems like the worst time.
Very awkward time to have that conversation, but I'm also not mad. I'm not mad at the mom for saying, hey, look, if this is the way you want to go about this and you're not necessarily going to take, traditional job offers that I send your way, then do it your way, but do it your way, pay your own way, go kill what you eat. So that's fine. And then I also like that Hillary accepted. She didn't, oh, you gonna kick me out the house? You're not gonna support me? You so cruel. No, she was with it. She was like, all right, bet, bitch. I'm with it. You know what I'm saying? She's like, bet it back there. You know what I'm saying? She was prepared for that. Yeah. So it does kind of make me wonder why that hasn't happened sooner. But it seems like everybody left on the same page. And I think she's just setting Hillary up to prove herself, right? Like, are you as passionate in your craft as I was in mine? Like, I know what that passion looks like. And if you are as passionate as I was, then you'll make it work regardless. It won't matter how much money you have or where you live.
It would probably be easier for Hillary in that situation, considering social media. But
and then also now you can do your thing. You can succeed and fail on your own and learn for yourself instead of having each step forward being kind of filtered by your mother.
So then we see the family decide to stay at the basketball game because finally Will gets in. The game's starting to heat up. It's a pivotal moment in the game. They decide to stay. Because of
that's
that,
kind of trash. That's kind of trash. That was kind of trash. Because y'all knew damn well, first of all, why couldn't y'all, if Will wasn't starting, why couldn't y'all have started out at Carlton's game, number one? Number two, y'all knew damn well, regardless of what was going on in either one of them games, that y'all was going to be splitting time. So why would y'all do that? Why would y'all, especially because y'all know that things between Carlton and Will are very tenuous right now. You can cut the tension with a butter knife. It is the most inopportune time to show favoritism in that house right now towards anyone. And they just seem completely clueless to the fact.
Especially, well, first of all, where was Ashley during all this? Second of all,
facts. Where the place? She's Yas. I thought she might end up being Yas. She's definitely Yas.
Second of all, wouldn't it make sense to have maybe two of you at Carlton's game and then two of you at the basketball game?
Well, then they wouldn't have to. Then they wouldn't even have to split the time, right? Because then you'd have somebody at Carlton's game and at Will. That makes too much sense. There's no conflict in that.
Just saying.
There's no conflict.
Fair enough. So Carlton, because of this, has a terrible game. Starts throwing F-bombs all over the field. Like, that's okay. Goes back to the locker room, hits another
Does a line.
And then decides to show up at Will's game because he hears all the commotion and sees that everybody's basically praising Will in this moment, which is oddly reminiscent of when Carlton decided to shoot the ball in the original sitcom. Like, fam is just fucking up.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, Carlton's whole life is falling down around him right now, man. He's losing all the things that made him him before Will got here. He's lost Lisa, he's lost the favor of the mob, he's lost his sports stardom, he's lost the favor of his mother and his father, even his sister. To a certain degree, his sister enjoys Will more than she enjoys Carlton. So it's bad, man. It's for a kid who was already struggling with anxiety, things don't seem to be getting better.
Which is terrible for a kid with a drug problem.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the very last scene that we see of this episode, Easy to Block Captain, who was preparing his rounds for his upcoming A-Verb battle, finally gets some news that he knows where Will is, which that whole situation felt weird to me, considering the fact that nobody thought to maybe silence the press coming his way, considering there is an active killer looking for him?
Well, I mean, to that end, how is he even still playing basketball? I mean, he's a nationally known basketball recruit. So anywhere he pops up is going to be a Google search away. So to that end, if they were trying to hide where he was at, him playing basketball probably shouldn't have been an option. Here's my real problem that I have with this part of the or this particular arc. Let's take Tommy, for example, right? Do you think that Tommy would chase a 15-year-old across the country because he pulled a gun on him?
No.
That's the only context you have. They was at a park, a scuffle broke out, he pulled a gun out on you, and then he moved to LA. Do you think Tommy would chase him across the country to go do that? Or even send somebody there to take care of it?
No, and Tommy is nuts.
And he's absolutely insane, right? So dealing with the realism that we've been getting from this show so far, I find it highly unlikely that Rashad's only motivation for trying to track down Will is to snuff him out or to honor his manhood somehow. That's very lowbrow, and it seems like an extraordinary amount of resources being spent on finding a kid. What if Rashad had a deeper connection to Will? If you remember at the basketball scene, right before Will gets into a tussle with Rashad and the other dudes at the basketball court, he says something to Will that I think a lot of people took as a throwaway line. But given some context, and I'm about to provide some here to try to bring all of this together, what if Rashad is Will's father? Stick with me. Stick with me here. Vivian, West Philly native, young, vibrant, talented, creative, bright future ahead of her. Gets pregnant by a young soldier, young block boy, right? Has her whole future put up in jeopardy, in question. Who's there to save her? Big sister Vi. No, you're not going to ruin your life for this poop butt ass boy. You're going to end up living on this block the rest of his fucking life. You're not going to do that. You're going to go to school and get an education like you planned and try to continue on with your art. I will take the baby. Raises him, keeps him, raises him as if she's his own son until he encounters the one person or comes into a tussle with the one person in all of West Philly that she would want to keep him away from under all costs, would want to keep him away from him under any circumstances. And now that person has him squarely in his crosshairs. Vivian gives in and moves hell and high water to make her husband call in every favor he possibly could have as a prospective DA. Again, not a DA. So that tells you even how much further he would have had to go to get this done, right? Goes to the ends of the earth to get her son or nephew out of jail, brings him back home because she owes it to him, because she left him in Philly to begin with. If you remember the phone conversation between Vi and Vivian, right? Vivian is like, she's trying to calm Vi down. Like, look, I got this. I can handle it. Why would she need to convince her big sister that she can take care of a kid if she already got 3?
That's a fact. That is a fact.
Why would she need convincing if she's already got 3 children? Why would I even need to say that to you? Unless the child I'm taking care of now is the child I gave up almost 20 years ago. Here's my only thing. He did say, "You my son," right? You my son before he grabbed Will at the basketball court. I still think there's a scenario where he could be Will's son and not know. I think that one is a little less satisfying for me, because what I think is going on is that the reason why Rashad wanted Will to work with him is so that he could eventually reveal to him that he was his father. He wants to bring him close so that he can build a relationship with him, so he can build to telling him that he's his father. And that's why it's not the fact that he wants to snuff out a 15-year-old for disrespecting him. That's stupid. That's dumb. But if that child was your son and you were trying to reconcile with him before he got whisked away to California, then yeah, you would do anything that you could to go find him. And that makes sense.
No, that does. Unlikely, but it makes sense.
Hey, we'll see. We'll see. And you know what? If it happens, just dub me prediction king.
Look, if that happens, I will dub you prediction king. I'll give you a little title at the bottom of your nameplate.
I appreciate that. Hey, I'm thinking the whole time, I'm like, all right, well, let me see what's going on. And then he said, "You my son." And I was like, okay, all right, throw it away. And then Vivian was like, "But we owe him." And I was like, "For what? What you owing for? What you owing for?" And then Phil was like, my heart has yearned for that boy ever since his father what? Turned to a life of crime? Is that what you was about to say? Huh? Became a drug kingpin? Is that what you meant? It's all coming together, baby. It's all coming together, baby.
The last thing I wanted to say is, bro, between Abbott Elementary in this show, I am fluent in Philly slang. I've been saying John and Young Bull, and I'm really hoping that at some point, nut ass freak bull, I hope they say that at some point in this show. I will be so fucking happy.
Okay, Aquafina.
Look, I'm just hoping for somebody in this show at some point to just say nut ass freak bull. I will laugh my ass off, and that'll be my favorite episode of this show. Make it happen. Any other thoughts on this show?
Not really. I gave my prediction, so give us yours. Tell us what you think about the first 3 episodes so far. Give us your thoughts.
And make sure you subscribe. We are going to be doing episode reviews for this throughout the season. And make sure you check out the playlist. The last video that we did was the preview for the show, so check out some of our predictions in that one.